Hi guys, welcome back to Darren's Maths Corner, and today we're going to be taking you through the highest common factor and the lowest common multiple. And then what we find at this point, there's a few examples. The highest common factor is the largest number which will divide exactly into each of the given numbers. So we've got an example here. Find the highest common factor of 120 and 252. So you've got to do all the prime factors, do it as a prime factor, to which then you've got, there's the 120, and then I've done the example of the 252 as well. And then you've got the equations at the bottom, and you find that the highest common factor, you've got to write it down as an expression first, which is 2 squared times 3. And then you find that the answer to that is 12. I was thinking about 24, and then I realised that 24 doesn't go exactly into 252. Which is why we then got the answer at 12. Now, the lowest common multiple is the smallest number into which each of the given numbers will divide exactly. Now, you've got to remember, a common multiple must include the highest power of each prime factor, as per the example that we've got there at the bottom. So you've got to include the highest power in each factor. So how many times each number appears, which is why you then put them into numerical order afterwards. So let's begin and have some fun. Let's find the highest common factors of 64 and 96. Well, first thing that comes to my mind, the first number that comes to my mind is 2. This gives you 32 on that. And oh, look at that, we've got that as well. This one's going to be just straight up 2s, because you just halve everything until you get down to 1. And that's what you end up with. So 1 to 2 is 2, times 2 is 4, 8, 16, 32, 64. So your answer there is just 2 to the power of 6. I shall just quickly make an indent on that. You know exactly what I mean when I do that. 96, on the other hand, well, I immediately see a 2. And I see another 2. 24, that's another 2. Another 2 there as well. And then you've got another 2 there, which is 6. Now you've got a 3 there, because it then goes back to the 1. 1 times 3 is 3, 3, 2, 6. Times 2 is 12, 24, 48, 96. So the sum here in this case would be 2 to the power of 5. I will sort that out. Times 3. Let me just quickly put that up, so then you know it's a power number. So the highest common factor of 64 and 96. Well, these are the ones where they have them in common. What they'd have in common. So if you go back to the example, it's the largest number which will divide into each of the given numbers. So we've got a 32 there, and then we've got a 32 there, 2 to the power of 5, which is 32. And that's your answer there. That's the first question sorted. Now we move on to the next one. Let's have a quick drink. Then we'll move on to the next one. 105 and 75. Well, the first, well, we're not dealing with an even number here this time. In fact, we're obviously dealing with odds here. First number that comes to my mind is 5. Let's do 105 first. That's then 21. And then you've got a 7 into that, which gives you 3. And then 3 divided by itself is obviously 1. So then you're left, to put that into an equation, you've got then 3 times 5 times, that's 15, times 7, which is 105. So then you do 75, right, again I see a 5 in that straight away, which then gives you 15. And then I see another 5 in that, which gives you 3, and then you've got a 3, so that leaves you with 1. Now remember, always put your equations in this case into numerical order. Just why I've got the 5 there. Now the most common factor at this point is 3 and 5. Only count one of the 5s at this point because you've only one of them's needed, and that then gives you the answer doing that of 15. That's the highest common factor of 105 and 75. The next one, we're looking at 345 and 920. Well, straight away we can see a 5. You can see a 3 in that, which gives you 115. Oh, excuse me. And then we've got a 5 in that, which then gives you 23. But then 23 is a prime number. 23 is a prime number. So it then leaves you just the following: 3 times 5 times 23. That's unfortunately, that's that, because 23, as I mentioned, is a prime number. Now we go into 920. Well, I see a 2 straight away. That's 460. I see another 2. It's 230. But this one's going to be quite an easy one, because then you've got that. So you've got another 2 into that. Which then gives you 115. But then what you've got left over after that, there's your 5, which then gives you 23. And then that's just that, because then 23 again is a prime number. Then your answer to that would be 2 cubed, which I will just quickly change that so it's a superscript. We'll superscript that 3. Take the superscript back off. Times 5, which is 40, times 23, which then gives you 920. Now, the highest common factor of both of these numbers is 5 and 23. Let me just pull that up a bit more. It's 5 and 23, because they both appear in that same order, which then gives you the answer of 115. Now so after that we will now go into the lowest common multiple of some numbers. Now, it's important to remember, as I mentioned earlier, that a common multiple must include the highest power of each prime factor, which is why I put in the example. So a common multiple must include the highest power of each prime factor. Bear that in mind as we then go into these. We'll do 16 and 18 first. So we'll do 16 first. I see a 2. It's just going to be straight up 2s. Which gives you that. 2 to the power of 4. And then we'll do 18. So that we got then we got a 2. You see a 2. 9. And then we got a 3. And then that's by itself. So we got then for 18, you've got 2 times 3 squared. Which is interesting because then what you do is you look at what we've got prime factors wise and we look at what's the highest in each one. So we've got 2 to the power of 4, which is 8. It's not a 16 even. 2 to the power of 4 is 16 times 3 squared, which is 9. 16 times 9 is 100 and 16 times 9 is 144. Join me back in a bit, guys, because I just want to double check something. We'll be back very soon. Welcome back, guys. I just had to take a quick break there because while I was preparing for this video, I had a nightmare of a time trying to sort out the lowest common multiple. And I often found myself getting confused between that and the highest common factor. And it was only then that I remembered that it's got to include the highest it's got to include the highest power of each prime factor, which is why I then didn't do when I was preparing for this. But I got that right this time, so let's move on to the next pair of numbers, 52 and 78. So we'll do 52 first. That gives you 26. So I see a 2 there. See another 2 there as well. 13 is a prime number. So then you've got 2 squared for that. That's 4 times 13. And then for 78, you've got a 2. Which gives you 39. And then you've got a 3 for 13. Now it's got to include, if it's got to include the highest, I would end up saying then 2 times 2 squared times 13, which that gives you the answer of 52, which I just think that can't be right. So again, join me back in a bit because I'm still having an absolute nightmare to try and sort these lowest common multiples out, but I will come back with the answer. And I'm back. I've just found out what the answer was to this question, and I've just realised that you've got 3 different prime factors. So then you then go 2 squared. This makes much more sense. Sorry about this, guys. I don't normally get tangled up with my maths, but I am this time, and it's just, yeah, I think I'm just having a bit of a moment. But I've got it sorted now. So you've got 2 squared, because we got 3 sets of numbers here, and not just the 2 like we did. Just that we only had 2 numbers to deal with. This time we've got 3. So we've got 2 squared, which is 4. Then you've got a 3, and then you've got a 13, which is 2 squared is 4 times 3 is 12. It's 156. That's more like it. Again, I must apologise about this. Okay, so the next one we want to look at is, this is going to be an interesting one, 900 and 4,200. Well, let's look at 900 first. Well, immediately I see a 2. My initial instinct was to divide each of those by 100, but then it would have screwed everything up. So let's just go by let's just do the whole thing. So we've got then a 2, obviously, because that's 450. We've got another 2. And this time we'll go straight to 5. Which then gives you 40, let's try and think, 45. Yeah, 45. And then we've got another 5. Which gives you 9, and then you've got a 3 for that, and then you've got a 3 for 1. So for 900 it then becomes 2 squared times 3 squared times 5 squared. Now, just before I confuse anyone with what I've done there, I'm just going to superscript these numbers just there. And then you've got 4,200, which then would do a 2 again, which gives you 2,100. Another 2, which is 1,050. And then another 2, which then gives you 525. And then we go to 5s, which then gives you 105. And another 5, which gives you 21. And then you've got a 7, pardon me, for 3. And then 3 for 1. Let me just tidy this up. So you've got 2 cubed times 3 times 5 squared times 7. Let me superscript the 3 and the 2. Now we've got to try and find the highest in each one, in each prime factor. Well, I see a 2 squared. I'm going to move this down a bit. I see a 2 squared. I see a 3 squared. I see a 3 squared. I see a 5 squared. And then I see a 7. But 2 squared is 4 times 3 squared, which is, so that's 9. 4 times 9 is 36. 36 times 25. So 4 times 9 is 36. Times 25 is 800. 36, no, 36 times 25. 4 times 9 is 36. Times 5. 36. 4 times 9 is 36. Times 25, because I see 2 lots there. 2 times, so 4 times 9 is 36. times 5 is 800. And but the answer that they found here was 12,600. And I'm just trying to work out how we got to that. Let me just have a look at my calculator and see what they... So it's 2 squared times 3 squared, which is 36, 800, 9, 36 times 25 is 900, times 7 is 6,300. Unless, of course... there we go. I've just worked out where I've gone wrong. I've just spotted a 2 cubed. That sorts things out. 2 cubed then would be 8. 2 cubed then would be 8 times 9 is 72. Let's try this. 2 cubed is 7. 2 cubed is 8 times 9 is 72 times 25. So 72 times 25 is, just trying to work that out. 2 cubed is 8 times 3 squared is 72. 72 times 25 is 1,800. Yes, 1,800, and then the 7, which is 12,600. There we go. Now I know where I've gone wrong. Yeah, there we go. I just spotted that. So yeah, it is 12,600. So amidst all my confusion, let's move on to the next question. We will find the highest common factor of 156 and 216. So let's just do 156 first. That is 2. That then becomes 78. I see another 2 in that, which then gives you 39. And then you've got a 3 there for 13. And then you've got that for 1. And then for 216, you get, so we'll do a 2 first. Let me just put this down first, just before I forget. Yeah, just before I forget. And then we've got another 2 there, that gives you 54. And another 2 there, that gives you 27. Then you've got a 3. And another 3. And then another 3. So this then essentially becomes 2 cubed times 3 cubed. And then we work out the similarities between them, because then you've got, it's the largest number which will divide exactly into each of the given numbers, which in this case it would be 2 squared, because this is what they have in common. 2 squared times 3. And that gives you the answer of 12. And then what we do is we take the 12 and we'll divide this fraction by it. So 156 divided by 12 is 13. Yeah, so And 216 divided by 12 is 18. And that's your answer to simplifying this fraction down. Now it's time for the bonus question. So in this video and all the other ones that I've done along with, and every other video that I've done when I've started including a banner, I've put in a bonus question, and I'm going to give you 50 points if you guessed it correctly. But let me go through it first, and then you'll see exactly what you'd expect. Just remember the rules of Bidmas, so always brackets first. And Bidmas, the rules of Bidmas, also not only do they count outside the brackets, but they also apply inside them as well. So you do the multiplication first. Which is 60. And then you've got your 9. You do 9 minus 60. Which then would give you the answer of minus 51. It's going to be one of those where I have another I'll have another negative number. So we've got a minus 51.
Sorry, I can't call an MMI or USSD number.
I can't. I didn't even say you could talk, love. Anyway, as I was saying, we have then another negative number, minus 51. And then once we've done that, we can then take care of the indices. We've got couples, so we've got a square root of 25, which if you've seen my earlier video where I go through these, you'll find that that's 5, which gives you that. That will then become a minus, but I'll explain more about that in a bit. But then we've also got a factorial number, which is any non-minus number or anything that's not 0. Any positive integer, not 0. A product is a product of all of those up to the number that I've got on display. So we look at 4 times 3 times 2 times 1, which is 24. And then you do your 75. I'll put in another 75. Because we've got to do division next. Just remember we had to do the square number beforehand, so we're now at 75 divided by 5, which is 15. And then you've got a plus and a minus. A plus and a minus make a minus. So that would give you minus 36. And then if you add the 24 onto that, you would then have the answer of minus 12. Always remember that when you're doing multiply and divide, that they have the same level of priority. they have equal priority, so you solve those left to right. But always do that before your add and subtract, which also have equal priority. So again, you solve those left to right in the order they appear. But remember always that dividing and multiplying always come before addition and subtraction. Well, that brings us to the end of chapter 1. Stay tuned for the next maths video where we have a look at revising over what I've covered in chapter 1 and to see how much you can remember. I will make it fun. I'll come up with some different numbers and I'll go through them with you as well. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.